So there's been a lot of misinformation that's been floating around lately when it comes to the Section 8 program. Section 8 housing is an extremely hot topic right now, and there's been a lot of false information, a lot of lies, a lot of people thinking that they know what they're talking about but have no idea. And it's crazy because people will say things in my comments like, "You're wrong," or "Where did you get this information from? The rules of Section 8 are this." And a lot of times they're just flat out wrong. And it makes me wonder, are these people really involved in this world? Like, are they Section 8 tenants? Are they Section 8 landlords? Do they work for housing? Maybe they're just listening to any and everything that they hear reported on social media. You see, here's the thing with me. This is actually like my real life. I'm really a Section 8 landlord in multiple states. I deal with Section 8 tenants. I deal with local housing authorities. I help voucher holders purchase homes in real life. And on top of all of that, I still do a lot of research because I'll be the first one to admit I don't know everything, but I know a lot more than the average person reporting on Section 8. I'm not on here just saying stuff. But anyway, back to the topic at hand. I want to address some of the misinformation that's been floating around when it comes to Section 8 housing and what's really going on. So first off, as you should already know, Section 8, which is actually known as the Housing Choice Voucher Program, is a program designed to help low-income families, the elderly, and disabled individuals with housing assistance payments. Now, there are also other programs like Section 202, which is a program specifically for low-income elderly, and there's Section 811, which is specifically for low-income disabled individuals. But the Housing Choice Voucher Program helps all three. Now, the Department of Housing and Urban Development, which is also known as HUD, is the department in the federal government that's responsible for overseeing these programs. They set the federal rules and guidelines on how they must run. And under HUD, there are public housing agencies known as PHAs, which are throughout the country in different counties and cities. They administer and manage these programs locally and must adhere to the rules and guidelines that HUD sets at the federal level, but can also add additional rules, guidelines, and requirements when it comes to how they manage and run their programs locally. And since there are about 3,300 public housing agencies throughout the country, every single Housing Choice Voucher program won't be ran the exact same. Now, in a general sense, they're all pretty much the same, but some might have slightly different requirements, some might have slightly different guidelines, and this might be why some people may get confused about certain things. So recently, there was a false rumor that Trump signed an executive order placing a 2-year time limit on those who are on public housing in Section 8. It started off with a post on social media. People started reporting on it, and eventually it went viral. It even got to the point where USA Today put out a news article addressing the rumor, titled, "No, Trump didn't sign an order setting 2-year limits on public housing." Now, I didn't even report on this because on this channel, I stick to the actual factual. But then people would say stuff in the comments like, "Where are you getting this information from? It's a 2-year limit on subsidized housing, and time limits should not be 2 years. It should be 5 to 7 years. So apparently people are out here believing this stuff. So let me address it. Federally, there are currently no set time limits for participating in subsidized housing. Now again, HUD sets the federal rules and regulations, but PHAs can then add their own rules, which they can regulate locally. So technically, there are PHAs out there that set time limits, but those don't apply to every single voucher holder. And I just don't know if there are any out there with a maximum time limit of 2 years. That seems extremely short. So you're gonna wait like 10 years to get something that you can only use for 2 years? I just don't know. Now federally, there's been reports of HUD Secretary Scott Turner eventually requiring time limits on subsidized housing. And it was also suggested throughout Project 2025. So I wouldn't be surprised if it eventually happens. But as of right now, there are no federal time limits in participating in subsidized housing programs, as long as you remain income eligible and fulfill your tenant obligations. Now, another bit of false information out there that people are believing is, in order to receive a Section 8 housing voucher, you have to have a job. As I get comments like, "You can't be on Section 8 and don't work, you have to pay half." This again is false information. I've literally had tenants without jobs who paid me nothing, as there are currently no federally mandated work requirements for subsidized housing programs. Now again, PHAs may implement their own work requirements, and some of them do, but the main ones that do are the ones that participate in HUD's Moving to Work program. So HUD, they'll have certain programs within the Project and Housing Choice Voucher program, and the PHAs can choose to offer those programs or not. Programs like the Family Self-Sufficiency Program, which helps families be more independent, the Home Ownership Program, which helps voucher holders purchase homes, and another program that HUD offers is the Moving to Work program, which is designed to help residents find employment and become self-sufficient. There are currently about 138 public housing agencies that offer this program, and those are the main ones that do have work requirements. But then again, there are some PHAs who don't offer this program but still have work requirements. But at the federal level, there are currently no mandated work requirements. Now, this is also something that's suggested throughout Project 2025. And it was recently reported that the agency is considering implementing both time limits and work requirements for tenants of public and subsidized housing. And judging by the comments I get, especially on TikTok, a lot of people agree with these requirements. So we'll see how that goes. As far as the second part of her comment saying voucher holders have to pay half the rent, this is also not true. And this is actually something that's set at the federal level. So as far as payments, HUD sets the fair market rents and the small area fair market rents throughout the country. PHAs then set their payment standards based off the market rents that were set by HUD. So they have a little wiggle room. But when it comes to the tenant's portion of the rent, HUD sets those rules and they're clear. The tenant pays 30% of their monthly adjusted gross income for rent and utilities. So public housing agencies can't make a tenant pay half of the rent. Everything is determined by the tenant's income. Now, can a tenant's payment portion turn out to be half of the rent? Absolutely, depending on how much they make and how much is credited for utilities. But PHAs don't have the leeway to determine how much a tenant has to pay. That's set at the federal level. In the past, there's been issues with certain PHAs as it pertains to rent payments. I know DC's housing authority got in trouble because after an investigation, come to find out they'd been overpaying landlords for years. For a while, DC was the best place for Section 8 landlords if you were able to afford to invest there, because DC is expensive. But those payments were pumped up. If they said that they pay you $5,832, then your collected rent payment would be $5,832. They didn't account for the cost of utilities, what the market rents were. DC landlords were getting paid. But eventually, HUD investigated and saw that DC's housing authority wasn't adhering to federal guidelines. So as a PHA, there are certain rules and regulations set by HUD that there's no getting around. Time limits and work requirements, PHAs have discretion. But rules regarding payments, that's in black and white. And since we're on this topic, I might as well mention a few honorable mentions when it comes to misconceptions about Section 8. The first one being the term Section 8 house. With me being an investor who teaches about Section 8 investing, people always ask me, how do I buy a Section 8 house? There's no such thing as a Section 8 house. It's just a house. You buy a house the same way you buy a house. Now, after you buy a house, you then choose to rent it to a voucher holder. So Section 8 is not attached to the house. It's actually attached to the voucher. Next up, properties that rent to Section 8 voucher holders aren't all located in the ghetto. For some reason, when people hear the term Section 8, they think of a bad neighborhood. That's not always the case. I actually like to buy properties in decent to good neighborhoods. And then you have the all Section 8 tenants are terrible myth. This, again, is not 100% true. Low income does not mean low quality. Some tenants are appreciative of the opportunity to get a voucher and don't want to mess it up. But then again, there are ones out there that'll tear your house up. So landlords, make sure you screen your tenants. And the last one is when it comes to payments. Like I mentioned, tenants are required to pay 30% of their income towards utilities and rent. But for some reason, people think that that means that they pay 30% of the rent. This is also not true. The tenant's income is what determines how much their portion of the payment will be, not the rent amount. So I figured I'd clear up those misconceptions about Section 8 since we were on the topic of fake news and lies. But anyway, like I said, there are currently no federal mandates pertaining to work requirements and time limits for subsidized housing. Stop believing the fake news. If you want the facts, come to this channel. Thanks for watching.